So I'm going to make a love spoon. This is a piece of mahogany. I've just free-handed a design on it. Gave myself a central line to try and keep everything in some sort of form. I'm drilling these holes because I need to cut that material out. I'm going to use the coping saw later on. So while it's still in a block shape and I can clamp it up tight, I'm getting that done now. You need to be always trying to think ahead when doing this sort of thing. Using the coping saw, I'm just going to go around the basic shape. Try not to get too close. The coping saw is not brilliantly accurate. Maybe it's just me and I don't have the patience for the coping saw, but this material needs to be a coping saw really. Jigsaw might take too many chunks out. This is mahogany, like I said. Mahogany is a very short grain, very dry, naturally dry wood, and it breaks like biscuit. So you have to be quite careful. Try not to get too close to your design, like I said. I'm going to sand it into shape. But again, while it's a block, I'll get the basic shape cut out first. Do you remember the coping saw from CDT? Back in school days, it was the one tool that you guaranteed to have. They never worked too brilliantly. Always snapping blades. Just keep working. It takes some time. You can use, there are electrical tools out there like a scroll saw, which is pretty much a coping blade. It bounces up and down on a flat plate. You'll be able to hold the timber on the flat plate and run round it downside quicker than doing it by hand. But this is what I've got, so this is what I'll use. So my design comes with a, I don't know if you've seen the love spoon that comes with the ball inside a little cube, if you like. So using the flat chisel vertically down to sever the grain before you flatten it off. So I need to flatten this section out to turn it into a box. This is the same method that you would use if you were chasing out for a chisel, for a door hinge. Vertical cut. Severs the grain, and that way when you cut it flat you don't take a chunk of material out. See that? It all comes out in pieces. Now give myself some guidelines. I'm just going to make a start on this. So like I say, I'm going to be carving a ball inside a little cube, if you like. We'll call it a ball in a box, it's just easier. So I'm just marking the material where that I'm taking out. Giving myself a guideline. The ball in the cube or the box is represents how many children you want. So I'm just taking the corners out, starting to round it, but just literally I just want to make a start on this while I can still clamp it up in the vise. See, I use the mallet for across the grain, but down the grain with the length of the grain. You just do it by hand. If you use the mallet, you may split the timber by forcing it away from each other. So there we go. Now I'm just going to sand it into shape. I'm using the angle grinder with a sanding disc. It's just a bit quicker and a bit easier to get into the intricate pattern, intricate shapes. I don't think you'll be able to do this with a bench grinder. It's going to struggle. You can do it by hand with a block and sandpaper, or you can finish it. You can keep going with a knife. I just need to speed things up, so I'm just going to pop to this angle grinder and whip it into shape quickly. So love spoons, here we go. I'll get back to that in a second. Unscrew the handle and you can pop the blade out of your coping saw and then poke it through the hole that we drilled in the beginning. And I'm going to start cutting out the internal material. But love spoons, generally we think of a love spoon, we think of a Welsh love spoon. I'm not too sure that Wales created the love spoon. Going back to Romans and Vikings, they've always carved intricate handles and stuff in things. So I don't know if it is actually Welsh, but Welsh have definitely taken it to heart, and they've been making love spoons for hundreds of years. I've seen antique versions, 500 years old, and they come in all shapes, all sizes, all different types of design. I've seen 4 foot length, 4 foot ones, I've seen 2-inch ones. Some have chain links carved and joined, but I'm doing the ball one. So now I'm just taking material off, so this is my sort of crossover design. I do this crossover design, in my mind it's like the DNA strands crossing over, and I've got 2 hearts joining, one at the top, one at the bottom. So 2 hearts entwined together, and obviously the ball is representing one child. But see how it's still quite square? We're just taking material off. That knife that I'm using there is the sort of knife you'll get in a carving set, a bush carving set. It's very thin blade, quite a long grind on it, or bevel, and it's super duper sharp. But it's not very nice for shaping, but for taking material away, it's brilliant. So I just whip away loads of material. We're not rounding anything off just yet. We're just literally keeping it quite bulky. Just get it down to size first. But you see, I keep turning the timber. That's I call it getting to know your timber. So when you're cutting your timber, you'll come to a point where it chunks out. So you have to turn it and carve it from the other direction. So now that's the gouge chisel. I'm going to just make a little start on hollowing out the bowl section of the spoon. We'll talk about the gouge chisel later on. There's a better clip where you can see how it works. So years ago, this would have been just made with a knife. So I'm just showing that you can. It's very slow go, but you can just keep going with a knife. But I need to speed things up, so I'll be flipping different tools. See how that chunked out there? I just turned it and then come back from the other direction. This is my knife. Look at the smaller amount it takes off. With a little twist, it goes into the grain and then comes out of the grain with a little twist of the wrist. A little revving sort of motion. But it takes a smaller amount, so it's easier to shape something. So I'm knocking the corners off now, just getting a bit of shape to it. Again, having to turn constantly. The wood's telling me which way it wants to be cut. I often get asked, how many times have you cut yourself? Not many. Just keep your limbs behind the blade and you'll be all right. And try to slice, not just push. It's easier said than done, I know. You get into a groove where you're just pushing the blade all the time. You forget to do the actual slicing action. But if you get a tricky piece of wood, if you actually try slicing as well as pushing, you'll find it will get through it. So once I've knocked all the corners off, I'm just going to move to sandpaper, a 120 grit, just to start shaping it the rest of the way. So I'm going to use these files as a former. What's a former? A former is something that is shaped the same shape as what you want to make something else. So the files are, a round file is going to get me into the main section of those cutouts. Then I use a half round to get tight into the corners. It just means I can push a little bit harder and get more material quicker. There's a lot of sanding, a lot. I think this spoon, probably over 2 days, 6 hours each day. So about 12 hours involved in making this. As soon as you start making anything that's intricate, it takes a lot more time. Because just how awkward it is to sand these little areas. So I've come inside to get out of the sun. So this is how you'd be doing this by hand. It's the same MO all the time, really. You kind of sever the grain above, and then you get under a piece of material and you kind of pick in it. But be careful you don't over pick and hit the outside, because you will take a chunk out of it. So just using a little flat chisel here. See that? That's quite a good angle to look at there. So the material won't go until I sever the grain above. So I'm slicing it with a chisel and then picking it out. So this is about 6mm half round gouge chisel. See the motion? If you look at the handle, the way it dips down. So down into the timber, dig down, and then drop the handle. That's how you're using the gouge chisel. So if you slip, you shouldn't go into your hand, because the force is down into the material. So down into the material, let the handle drop and it picks a chunk out. When it comes to carving these bowls, the material, the wood, is going to tell you what direction to be carving in. So whether it's a cross grain or down the grain or up the grain, whatever, you take it as it comes. Good representation of how the chisel's working, seeing the handle drop down like that. So down, in, down, in, down. You can wear a glove. I'm not wearing a glove, so I can show you more so you can see more. But you'll bruise your thumb up something fierce if you don't wear a glove doing this. And I am moving to the Dremel just to help remove material a little bit quicker. It's exactly the same method, clearing the material from the top and trying to maintain that ball shape. So now I'm moving on to the finer sandpaper. Same again, using the files as formers. And then a lot more sanding again. Did I say there was a lot of sanding? There's a lot of sanding. Use your knife to finish any sharp edges and just file those smooth. We're getting somewhere. So I'm just going to flick back from knife, chisel and Dremel to carry on removing material around this ball. You can see we're getting there now. We've got the, you can see daylight through the corners, look. See there? Just go nice and easy, nice and gentle. Put too much force in and you will just break everything right now. I'm using that little wood carving knife, just stabbing the grain at the top. And then I'm going to use the actual back of the knife, the wider section of the knife, to actually break away that grain. So just pushing it over and breaking it. So you just keep going, same method. Just don't be pushing too hard, don't be forcing anything right now. Even holding on with your left hand, don't hold on too tight, you will break something. Just making sure all the connections are severed. It's getting really close now. Using that Dremel to clear the material above, just so the blade can get a little bit closer to where I want it. Oh, I've got a little bit of movement in that now. Yeah, let me move my fingers out of the way so you can see. Look, see that little movement? So now I'm going to pinch the ball and twist it to snap the grain. There you go, I think I'm through now. Yeah. Right, there you go. We have a ball in a box. So now I've just got to tidy up the ball. So turn it to the high points that were at the top and just chisel those off. Don't get carried away with trying to sand this down. The last time I made one of these, I over sanded and ended up breaking the pillar that holds it together. So I'm not going to over sand this one. I'm just going to keep it just quite rough inside there. Again, hollowing out the top and the bottom so the ball has got some movement. I want the ball to rattle around inside. There's no point having the ball in there if it's all tight and barely moves. I want to be able to rattle it around. There you go. Time for some oil. This is the best part when it comes to oiling it. See the natural colour, see the real colour of the wood come out. Look at the red in that, that's lovely. This is mineral oil. Chopping board oil, mineral oil. but I like to do the oil first so it soaks right into the grain, and then I'll use a mixture of beeswax and mineral oil, 50-50, melted down in the jar, and it just means it's pliable. There you go, we're done. Beautiful mahogany love spoon.